Hello, let's discuss about something that is to learn something. There is basically two ways. I found an amazing blog based on this concept. Let's start reading. The two ways to learn something. Okay. Vladimir Nabokov was born in Russia in 1899. He wrote his first 9 novels in Russian while living in Berlin, but by 1945 he lived in the United States and he spoke English. So he translated those novels into English. Okay, and from then on he mostly wrote in English, and today he is best known as an English writer. Okay. He always felt handicapped by the English language. My private tragedy, he wrote, which cannot, indeed should not, be anybody's concern, is that I had to abandon my natural idiom, my untrammeled, rich, and infinitely docile Russian tongue for a second-rate brand of English. But by the end of his life, people considered him to be better at writing in English than most native speakers. Conceptual versus intuitive understanding. When you know something conceptually, that means your conscious mind understands it. You can explain it to someone else, but you can't always remember it when you need it, especially in the heat of the moment. Conceptual knowledge is good for theoretical stuff like quantum physics or philosophy or military strategy. On the other hand, when you know something intuitively, that means your unconscious mind understands it. So things you have to do quickly, anything that requires instant reaction time like conversation, hitting a baseball, hand-to-hand combat, requires intuitive knowledge. So what this basically means, let's say I'm conversing with someone and then I say I eat rice. Now here when it comes to the word eat, where do I found this word? Did I have to think about the word I eat, think about the word eat, then I have to put this word in the sentence, I eat rice, then I have to deliver? No, the eat verb was subconsciously inside my mind, so I get to deliver easily, right, to the in front of people. So while doing conversations or hitting a baseball or playing any cricket, playing any games, hand-to-hand combat, these kind of things requires intuitive thinking, right? So in general sense, when you do certain things quickly, we tend to do intuitive, we tend to align with intuitive understanding more than conceptual understanding. Okay. Intuition versus expertise. Intuition is rapid and effectively charged judgments influenced by processing styles, decision environment, decision tasks. Expertise-based intuition, that is rapid generation of single decision options rooted in extensive domain-specific knowledge. So there is a combination of both intuition and expertise. Expertise basically defines adaptation of performance processes to the demands of a domain, that is sense making, mental simulation, situation assessment, and problem representation. Expertise based intuition, that is rapid generation of single decision options rooted in extensive domain specific knowledge. Then pattern recognition, automaticity. Okay. When Nabokov learned Russian And when everyone learns their native language, they learn it intuitively. They can't explain how the rules of the grammar work, but they can communicate just fine. But when Nabokov learned English, he learned it conceptually. He studied grammar in a classroom, the same way most people learn second languages. This handicapped him for most of his life because his intuition English fell short of a native speaker, right? However, after enough practice writing and speaking in English, his intuitive English was about as good as natives. And with his years of speaking English in the real world, plus all the conceptual grammatical knowledge of someone who studied English as a second language, his English skills were formidable. Okay, so I just wanna see something. That is, what is the meaning of formidable? Formidable translates to inspiring fear or respect through being impressively large, powerful, intense, or capable. It suggests that someone that is strong and slightly frightening. Okay. Our school system mainly focuses on conceptual knowledge, but well-rounded people need a sprinkling of both to succeed in the real world. Really smart scientists and students who do well in school have reputations for being pointy heads, unable to understand the real world around them because they get too caught up in the theory. But someone who is all intuitive won't be able to plan ahead and can only react to what's in front of them. Then comes grammar versus science. Nabokov got by on his conceptual English until his intuitive English was good enough. But as a society, we often do the opposite. We get by on intuitive cultural wisdom until science catches up. For example, humans evolved with a certain set of instincts about how to take care of their health, and we are acquired even more though through culture. They are not perfect, but they are better than you would expect. The ancient Chinese, Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, and Native Americans all used certain plants as medicines. Today, scientists doing clinical trials have realized that many of those plants have real medical efforts. Lemon balm, for instance, was used by the 11th century Arabs because they believed it had soothing powers. Today, scientific studies have shown that it helps reduce anxiety and insomnia. In addition, many cultures around the world figured out how to eat healthy seemingly by accident. For example, eating too much corn isn't good for your health unless you eat a lot of lime and beans to go with it. Amazingly, Mexican cuisine, based mainly around corn, evolved to use lots of lime and beans as well. In the long run, if you study something scientifically enough, science will surpass intuition on anything. For instance, we have better medicine today than any ancient culture did, even though our world today is far less based on intuition. But in the short run, if science hasn't found anything useful about the subject you're interested in, you might learn something about it by asking your grandmother, the ultimate source of cultural wisdom. Why we shouldn't be ignoring intuition? Today, medical science has probably surpassed grandmotherly intuition. You're better off listening to a doctor than a spiritual healer, and often rightfully, we make fun of ancient traditions. Burning witches probably wasn't good for society, and rain dances probably didn't do anything for your crops. In the other words, intuition isn't always right, but science isn't always better than intuition. At least in the short term, science still isn't sure what the perfect diet is, but if you live anywhere other than the US, you can keep a fantastic diet by just strictly following your local cultural norms around eating, whatever those are. In the Western world, we respect science and rightfully so, but we underappreciate cultural wisdom, often ignoring it altogether, often to the point of ignoring the good things it produces. For a long time, scientists dismissed things like acupuncture and meditation as being unscientific. But recently, studies have shown that acupuncture and meditation have huge benefits. Paying attention to cultural traditions could be like a cheat code for science. Paying attention to old traditions could help generate hypotheses and experiments that we never would have had otherwise, possibly letting us bypass decades of research. For example, if we learn why meditation works so well, it may unlock secrets about the human brain which we still don't know very much about, or perhaps by analyzing an ancient tradition that we ridicule today, we'd learn why that ritual is so important, which could tell us something about ourselves that we can't even imagine. Hi, thanks for this reading. I hope you enjoyed this article. I hope you learned something interesting. If you want to this was an amazing post. Okay, my analysis to this beautiful article is that intuition is very much important for thinking and problem solving, and to learn anything that is hard, intuition will greatly help. For example, let's say to learn a new concept we need some prerequisite, right? And if by intuition the prerequisites are easy for us, then we could learn that concept more easily, right? If we think about it. And that is where intuition is much more important than deeply conceptual learning. Also, when you want to learn something so rapidly, then it counts for your intuition. And the further you practice a thing, your intuition gets better and better. The same thing happened for this guy I mentioned, that is a Russian writer, Vladimir Nabokov. I hope we learned something today. Thanks for watching.